Aloha, welcome to Hawaii Efoil Experience. This video is your ground school video. It's intended to prepare you to get onto the water and make maximum use of your time on the water so that you can foil in your first lesson. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do when you show up at the beach is we're going to get you sized up with a helmet for protection and a life vest for your safety. Next thing we're going to do is get you onto our training mats so we can show you how to progress through the different steps between prone, up to your standing, and then onto the foil. So that's what we're going to do now. First thing I want to do is go through two safety tips that we want to make sure you keep in place. The first safety rule has to do with this hand controller. This hand controller controls the speed of the board. This hand controller is connected to the board by Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth antenna is in the nose of the board. And the problem with Bluetooth is it doesn't work well in water at all. So whenever this hand controller goes underwater or the nose goes underwater, the Bluetooth is going to be disconnected and the hand controller will no longer control the board. The danger comes about when you fall off the board and you're swimming back to the board. If you accidentally hit this trigger without turning off the power, you can engage the motor and potentially harm yourself by doing so. So the first safety rule is to turn off this hand controller before you approach the board. Second rule is not to fight the fall. This second safety rule, it has a lot to do with being stubborn and wanting to keep the board going. And we're going to tell you, don't fight it. Everyone's going to get up on their feet. Everyone's going to feel a little bit uneasy or out of balance or get that wobble in their feet. When that happens to you, we're going to encourage you to do two things. One, we're going to ask you to get lower in your stance so you get a lower center of gravity. You can absorb the wobble in the board or from the water. Two, if you feel like you still are uneasy, jump off the board. We want you to clear away from the board. You don't have to take a 10-foot jump. It's a little 2-foot jump so that you can get clear of the board so you don't hit the mast or the foil. If you follow those two safety rules, you'll be in good shape. If you ignore the safety rules, we're going to remind you. If you keep on ignoring them, you're going to get reminded the hard way. We'd rather that not happen. We have not had any serious incidents, and we would like to continue to do so. So with those two safety rules in place, let's go through our progression. Progression is where we're going to go from prone to standing on the board. So follow me as we go through this. So this is our progression training. We're going to start in the prone position. I'm going to ask you to lay on the board and put your wrist strap onto your wrist so you keep the hand controller under control. Next thing we're going to do is actually pull the trigger all the way down. This board is capable up to 30 miles per hour, but we're going to govern the speed down to less than 10 so you don't have to worry about going too fast. First task is to get the trigger all the way down. We want you to squeeze the trigger steadily till you get to the bottom. Once you're there, hold it the whole time. Do not jerk the trigger. If you jerk the trigger, the board will just jump straight up in the air. Instead, we want you to steadily squeeze it. As you squeeze it, the board's going to want to come up. As the board comes up a little bit with the nose, you want to hold the trigger where it is. Move your body weight forward to keep pressure on the front of the board so the board goes back down on the water. Then continue to pull the trigger till the trigger is all the way down. Once the trigger is all the way down and the board's level on the water, you've accomplished your first task. Next thing we want to do is holding the trigger down, keep our arms on the board. We want to get to our knees. All we're going to do is take two big steps with our knees. So our knees end up in between the handles, and then we come up onto our hands and then high up onto our knees. What we want to do is get high on our knees where our shoulders are over our hips are over our knees. And if we do this in the right spot, the board's going to stay on the water. If the board starts to come off the water, just put your hands back down onto the beach, move your knees forward a little bit, and then come back high onto your knees. If you move your weight backwards, like you're sitting on your ankles or your heels, the board will start to come up again. So that's why we say come up high on your knees. Still with the full trigger. Once you're on your knees this way, we're going to teach you how to turn. There's many ways to turn the board. We're going to show you the easiest way, which is with your shoulders. So if you pretend that you're a bird or an airplane, put your arms out to the side, and all you got to do is roll a little bit to the left to turn left, roll a little bit to the right to turn right. That's really how simple it is. You don't need to keep your arms up, but it demonstrates the difference between twisting and rolling. We want you to roll slow and in small increments. Once you get the board going left and right a little bit, then we're going to use that idea and transfer it to our feet. So that's our next step, to get to our feet. We still have a full trigger on the hand controller. We put our hands back down on the board, and we bring our front foot forward. Our front foot should be in the middle of the deck pad, between your knees and the edge of the deck pad. You're going to leave your hands down momentarily and get your back foot onto the board. Once you're there, you're going to come up, up, up onto your front foot, keeping most of your pressure forward. When your body is all the way up, then you want to take that back foot and wiggle it forward until your feet come between the handles. From here, then you can redistribute your weight so that you have an even pressure between your 2 feet. 50% of your weight will be distributed evenly on your front and back foot. From here, all we want to do is establish balance. This is the most important part of the entire lesson. You have to establish your balance, but you also have to establish your stance. Everyone's stance is unique to themselves. There's so many different ways to stand on the board. We can't tell you which way to do it, but we can give you some pointers. First tip. You normally want to be center line on the board. That means your front foot and your back foot are on the center line of the board. But if you're a smaller rider, or you like to ride further to the rails, you can go off center by moving your front foot to one side and your back foot to the opposite side of the center line. That'll be fine. Another tip, you might want to ride with your toes across the rail like this, or you might want to open up your front foot so that the toes are more towards the nose. That allows more flexibility to open your hips and your shoulders towards the front. No matter what it is, you have to find your stance, and we're going to encourage you to adopt a narrow stance. A lot of people think they have to have a very wide stance like this. Okay, what we're going to tell you is it's much easier to control the board, especially going up and down, when we have a narrow stance. And we'll demonstrate that for you when you come on site, so I can show you the difference between a wide stance and a narrow stance. But once you get a stance that gives you some confidence, that's where you got to go with, and you got to work with what you got. From this stance, what we want to do is take our shoulders and rotate our chest and shoulders so it's facing towards the nose. It doesn't have to be directly over the nose. It can be closed down a little bit, but we want to be towards the nose so that we can use our bird or airplane analogy to roll left and roll right with our shoulders initiating the turn. It does help to look where you're going, roll your shoulders, let your body follow it. Look where you're going, roll your shoulders, let your body follow that. We do not want you to turn with your feet. Do not turn with your knees, and do not turn with your hips. We'd rather you turn with your shoulders than let the body follow the shoulder roll. It's a lot easier to do. Again, you don't need your arms out like this, but it helps to demonstrate. And you're going to do a little right, little left turn. And you continue this for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes for you to get full confidence in your control of the turning left and right. Once you can control left and right, then we can move on to the next step. This is super critical. It's about getting your stance set up and getting control left and right. Without that control, we don't want to move on to the up and down. After the roll control is to learn how to get pitch control. If you can imagine, we're standing on a seesaw, okay? And so far, if this is the seat, right? The front seat is towards the front of the board, the back seat's toward the back of the board, and the pivot point of the seesaw is right down the middle. We've been standing on this seesaw like our back foot is on top of the pivot point and our front foot is on top of the one seat. So that enables us to keep that one seat of the seesaw down on the playground. In this instance, it keeps our nose of the board down on the water. Now, if we want to go up and down with the seesaw, we have to move our body backwards. So what we're going to ask you to do is keep your nice straight line, be very relaxed in your stance, and little by little, you're going to back up your feet. The reason for that is so we can get your weight behind the pivot point. That's the only way that we can take the seesaw and move the front seat and back seat up and down the way we want to. So little by little, we're going to back up your feet. And there's a pivot point that we'll point out to you when you get to the site of where that pivot point is on your board. So little by little, you're going to go back, 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 and we're going to ask you to stop when we get to a good point. And again, you're going to relax. This is where we're going to first start to learn to go up and down. It's called pitch control. All you got to do is go in a straight line, no more turning, and we're going to ask you to slide your hips to the back foot. Just like if you're on the seesaw trying to get that front seat to come off the ground in the playground, we're going to slide our hips to the back, let that front seat of the seesaw come up. In this case, the nose comes up. As soon as you feel that nose come up, slide your hips forward and let the nose go right back down and settle. Okay, just relax here. That's your first time in the air on foil. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel new, and that's how everyone explains it, but it's going to also be really, really cool. You're going to want to do more of it. So we're going to encourage you to do what we call touch and goes, okay, where we relax and we go straight. We slide our hips to the back, let the board come up maybe 6 to 12 inches, and slide our hips forward to let it go back down onto the water. It's a very slow movement. So if you look at my hips, they come back maybe 3 to 4 inches very slowly. As soon as you feel the board come off the water, start moving your hips forward so the board goes right back down. All we're doing is coming off the water a little bit and going right back down. The more we can do this, the more repetition we build in, the faster we learn how to control that pitch. Once you learn how to control that pitch, then you're going to enjoy the foil a lot sooner. So you're going to do that about 20 times. It takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to do that, to go up and down, up and down. Now, once you get a good feel for that, we're going to ask you to move further back. The reason for that is, if we go back to the seesaw analogy, in the seesaw analogy, what we did is we moved our back foot just behind the pivot point. But if you stand on a seesaw, ideally you want that pivot point right down the middle of your 2 feet. So that means we have to move our feet further back. And that way we have full control, what we call complete alignment with the foil. Once you're directly over that pivot point of the board, then we're going to try to do the touch and go again. Again, moving our hips back, let the board come up, and then move our hips forward, let the board go down. You're going to find it's a lot more responsive and a lot more fun to do. Still going in a straight line, we're going to ask you to come up on foil, and every time you come up, to extend that period over the water, what we call on foil, to 5 seconds, to 10 seconds, to 30 seconds. Eventually, you're going to be on foil for 10 to 15 minutes. And it's going to be a ton of fun. You're going to absolutely love it. It's something that we all get addicted to, and we want to share that same excitement with you. So all we have to do is go straight. We're on the water. We slide our hips back. The board comes up. And then to stay on foil, we move our hips slightly forward, maybe halfway to the front foot, so that we can keep that seesaw balanced. That's all we're doing. If you think you're on the seesaw, you're never really perfectly balanced. It's always a little bit of forward and a little bit of back. And that's what we're going to be doing, moving our hips a little bit forward, a little bit back. We still have our shoulders facing the front, and we're using our hips to go up and down slightly. We want to stay over the water for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then move our hips back forward and go back on the water. We're just getting repetition built in, but we're extending that foil time. Eventually, you're going to get all the way across this bay area on foil, and then, and only then, will we show you how to get on foil and turn. What we don't want you to do is get on foil and try to turn around. It's very complicated if you don't have full control of your pitch. So instead, we want you to do straight lines only, and then a lot of our students, right about the 45-minute mark, they have very good pitch control. And if you're ready to go to the next step, we will show you how to turn, which is very simple, but it's better taught on the water than on land. So our progression training. Before we finish off this video, I do want to give you a couple of pointers. First pointer is don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush to get on foil. It is super fun, but the more in a rush you are, the more you're going to fall. It's better that you go through each of the steps of the progression so that you get up safely and you don't hurt yourself. Second, you got to relax. So many of our students are thinking about all the things that we're teaching in this video, think about all the things they have to do on the water, and they get overwhelmed with what has to happen. Instead, it's better you just relax. Let the mind relax, let the body take over. The body is learning. By you just doing the steps that we're showing you, the body's going to learn very quickly. It's a very intuitive sport, and we think you'll learn much faster that way. Third and final tip, a lot of people will get onto the foil by sliding their hips backwards, and then they feel so out of place. It's such an awkward feeling that they panic. And rather than sliding their hips forward to go back down, they poke their nose and their head forward to get their head weight to push the board back down. The problem with that, if you watch my hips, as I move my head forward, my hips go backwards, and that tells the board to continue to go up. So the up and down pitch control is all in the hips. A little bit to the back, a little bit to the front. Listen, we're going to be with you the whole time. Our instructors follow you and give you point-by-point instruction through radio communication, so you will always feel safe. You will always be taught specifically to what you're doing right or what you're doing incorrect, and we will overcome each and every obstacle through progression training, and you're going to love it. So we look forward to having you out here at the beach in Hawaii, learning how to foil on the Lift E-foils. We absolutely love what we do, and we know you're going to love it too. Can't wait to get you out here on the water. Aloha. Yeah! Yeah! Yee, that was the one!